Hey guys, it's Matthew from MORSEL, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to more effectively market your indie game, I guess. So it's basically a known fact that indie developers have essentially no budget for marketing at all, if any money at all, really. And so you always have to resort to grassroots kind of PR type marketing to get the word out about your game. And so about a year ago, at the Indie Game Summit, Phil Fish and Kyle Gabler gave a talk on the top 10 ways to market your indie game. And essentially each one of those ways to market your indie game kind of fits under this umbrella of, like I said, like generating word of mouth and PR, and everything you do has to be kind of unique so that it's worthy of talking about. Because if you do things that are generic, you kind of just fly under the radar, and nobody knows about you, and that's exactly the opposite of what you want. But the other day, I came across this book called The Referral Engine, and it's basically, it outlines a systematic approach to how to set up your marketing processes to basically generate organic word of mouth, like almost so you don't even really have to think about it. People just talk about what you're doing. And it's just like the science of generating word of mouth, I guess, is a good summary. So, yeah, for $15 or $20 over on Amazon, just go pick it up, and it's basically, I guess, like the Bible of how to generate word of mouth. And so, the second thing I kind of wanted to talk about today is a more effective way to approach the App Store, or selling a game on the App Store. And so, it's like just this huge monster of a market, and so I don't know what the figure is, but I have like 10,000 apps and games go up every day. And so how do you stand out? And so I've noticed, like, if you go into, let me just do this, if you go into the App Store at any given time, like the top 25 or 50 games are going to be predominantly games that you've seen elsewhere. And there's a reason for that. So let me see. So, just like familiar things like Tetris, Guitar Hero, Fragger is a game on Miniclip, Battleship, Monopoly, SimCity, Plants vs. Zombies, Bejeweled. I mean, the list goes on and on. But it's essentially things that are familiar bubble up to the top. And so, it's a pretty, I guess, like known thing in the marketing world that consumers choose the most familiar thing to them almost instantly, because unless it's shit, unless it's like they're familiar with it but they hate it, then they won't. But like if you go into a store and you see like Coke and Pepsi on the shelf next to like a whole line of like no-name brand sodas and stuff, most of the time, I'm not saying every time, but most of the time you're going to choose the Coke or Pepsi. You're familiar with that, and so it just makes sense. You know you're going to be satisfied with that. And the same is true for this. If you just look at, I'll just use Cannibalt as a reference. Like, that was first a Flash game, and a lot of people played it, and a lot of people were familiar with it, and then it went up on the App Store, and it did really well. And a game like that is like, the name doesn't, I don't even know what Cannibalt means, if it means anything. And then like the little icon is just like, you know, gray and white. Like, there's nothing that like pops out, and it's like, yes, this is an awesome game. But because people are familiar with it, and because there was like this I guess like cloud of hype around it, it just immediately was familiar, and it did really well. And same thing with Robot Unicorn Attack. It's doing well now, like Plants vs. Zombies and Tetris. Like, those are all on other platforms, so they have an audience that knows about them already, and so then they approach the App Store, and then they do well. Very few games are just like native, like I guess Doodle Jump is like one, like huge one I guess, but very few of like those just like really like native iPhone games really bubble to the top, and I think that's why, is because in a sea of like thousands of new games every day or every week or whatever, how are you going to stand out when all you really have to market yourself like on the front page is just like an icon and a name? I mean, it's really hard. So personally, I think the best approach, if you're going to do a game for the App Store, is to make a Flash version first. And the reason I say a Flash version is because there's a lot of similarities between a Flash game and an iPhone game. The scope is very similar, and so and also a Flash game. There's just a huge market for Flash games. I think like the average Flash game. There's like a survey. I think Mochi Media did it. And the average Flash game gets over 500,000 plays. And so if you're going to, get 500,000 people familiar with your game, you're immediately, and it's really easy to make Flash games go viral and like spread it around and use that as marketing while you're developing the iPhone version. So there's lots of benefits, but the main thing is that now that game specifically is familiar to people, and then so when they see it for $1.99 or $2.99 on the App Store, they're a lot more comfortable purchasing that. So my phone's ringing now, so I'm going to cut this off. But those are just my thoughts. Tell me what you think. Get us on Twitter. Subscribe to this, I guess, because I'm going to be doing this pretty often. And peace.